absolutely crazy since about November 2020. So everybody's in lockdown and law firms stopped recruiting from April. It was just a really hard stop, and we had to furlough a few people, and we let a couple of people go in my business. But then they started recruiting at volume, and law firms had been recruiting, particularly in transactional areas. It's a market like I've never seen before for the past 18 months. It's maybe starting to slow down a tiny bit now, but it's still pretty crazy. And by transactional areas, I mean primarily all sorts of finance, corporate, but frankly, they're recruiting in all areas. All types of litigation. I recently placed a patent litigator recently. Real estate litigation, insurance. There's just a lot of activity in all areas. Even the counter-cyclical ones, things like employment, are starting to come through. And I wonder if that's because some businesses will have been so busy they haven't made the difficult employment decisions yet, but they might be starting to do it now, as things like the increased cost of everything comes through, and the war in Ukraine is affecting margins and so on. But it's still a crazy busy market. Why would people come to the UK? Apart from the money, and the money is I mean, especially driven by private practice. The money is crazy at the moment. You know, there are newly qualified lawyers, which means somebody's come out of university and done a legal practice course and then a 2-year training contract. So they're probably 25, 26, and there are newly qualified lawyers in the city earning £160,000. And it's just silly, and that flows down to the firms below the really top one, because everyone's competing for the same talent. So the money's a big reason why you come over here. But you're in London, which, despite having left the EU, which don't get me started on that, we're still very much the centre of where things are. You know, it's I talk to employers over here about why New Zealand lawyers would come to London, and I say from a life point of view, from New Zealand, if you're lucky, you might go to Australia once a year, and that's a 3 or 4 hour trip. And from London, if you travel 3 or 4 hours, you'll reach 20 different countries speaking 50 different languages. It's just a place where it's a significantly more diverse centre than New Zealand is, and that's attractive. It's just wonderful to be able to travel so easily. And London itself is tremendously diverse compared to New Zealand or Australia. I should talk about the work, shouldn't I? I mean, the work is so much bigger and so much more specific than what you do in New Zealand. So fairly often I speak with a New Zealand finance lawyer, and even big firms in New Zealand, although your experience might lend itself towards perhaps a little bit of real estate finance, that might be half of what you do. And there might be a team in New Zealand at a big firm with 5 partners doing quite a broad range of work. And over here, you'll have a team of 5 partners doing a very specific, tiny bit of work with 15, 20 associates beneath them doing the same thing. And that's just one firm. You know, there's far more opportunity to really get involved in the very specific areas that you're interested in. And it's headline grabbing sort of work. You know, if you're acting for if you're working for a large firm here on a big transaction or a big case, if it's litigation, you'll see it in the papers, you know, and it'll make international headlines.